Hi everyone, my name is Junon. I have a health science background, and I'm the author of the books Truth and Empathy, How to Find Your Soulmate, as well as Theta-Waves Meditation. And I'll put links to my books below. This video is about the biopic Michael, or The Anatomy of a Dysfunctional Family. I recently watched the movie and I thought it was pretty good. I would give it an A minus, and I was surprised that the critics gave it such a low mark. Because at the core of this movie is the relationship between Michael Jackson and his father, Joseph Jackson. So Michael Jackson, from his childhood until his young adulthood, learns how to become independent and basically become his own person, to become emotionally, financially, and otherwise independent from the ties that he has with his abusive father. And I wanted to sort of dive into this topic because, let's face it, pretty much all families are dysfunctional. I'm going to be using an article that I wrote about 18 years ago on the topic of dysfunctional families, titled "Is Blood Thicker Than Water?" And I have some notes on screen so I don't miss anything. So abuse can be defined as any behavior or action taken against someone that in any way devalues the person. A dysfunctional family is a family in which conflict, misbehavior, and often abuse on the part of individual members occur continuously and regularly, leading the members to accommodate such actions. So you'll see in the biopic Michael that this dynamic is very much sort of ingrained. So you have the father, who is obviously Joseph Jackson, who is very abusive to his children, whether verbally, physically, because at that time, be able to reprimand your children physically was well accepted. And especially when it comes to Michael, because obviously he was very young at that time. And so you'll see that you have the abuser, and the mother is the enabler, because she's, she tries to be supportive of her children, but she lets her husband, take control of the situation. So, in other words, for this to happen, there needs to be sort of a power imbalance. And in this family, the father is the one who was really in control, and you have the brothers and sisters who are somewhat in the background, and Michael, who is receiving a lot of this abuse. So in other words, everyone is playing a role: the abuser, the enabler, the abused, and the bystanders. So in any family dynamic that you see a lot of dysfunctional behavior, you'll see that each person has to play a role to make this happen, especially if it continues over many years. There are common characteristics of dysfunctional families, and again, I have some notes on screen. So one is rewriting history. Whenever it is convenient, essential elements or entire events are deleted by some family members, and the abuse is experienced twice: the initial injury, and again by not acknowledging its occurrence. The other one is extreme subjectivity. There's only one reality, and wherever the dysfunctional individual is positioned, they are right. Different facts or environmental factors have no impact on their perception of always being right. The other one is extreme emotionality. It is virtually impossible to calmly discuss an issue. These individuals scream and yell at the slightest hint that a problem needs to be discussed. Another one is no genuine communication. Family members literally talk over each other. They are unable to hear, listen, or understand what someone else is trying to communicate. An issue that should take 5 minutes to resolve will degenerate in an intense 30-year quarrel. Invasion of privacy. You'll see that many of these family members believe that they can just, get into people's personal affairs, and will be no negative, consequence to that. So, invasion of privacy. Dysfunctional family members need to know everything about everybody in the family. They may at times open each other's mail, check cell phone voice messages, or look through other people's personal items. Is downplaying abuse. When someone points out their disrespectful ways, the dysfunctional members pretend that it's the other person's who is hypersensitive. Paradoxically, when someone treats them the exact same way, they may become enraged. It's like no apologies. So by not recognizing the damage they have caused, dysfunctional individuals almost never apologize. Also, they do not empathize with others by putting themselves in other people's shoes. And finally, emotional blackmail. Some family members will use guilt or threat to cut ties with the uncooperative member. In the biopic Michael, pretty much all the elements of a dysfunctional family were present, but there are other aspects to this dynamic. When Michael was very young, his father, Judith Jackson, could control him physically. So yes, he was emotional abusive, verbal abusive, but also he spanked his children. But when a child grows up, at some point they are physically as strong or even stronger than the parents, so then they can no longer use this method. Now they might try to keep them under the same roof and not allow them to be financially independent. But in the case of Michael Jackson, because he was so talented, at some point he was able to make his own music and album so that he was able to earn a pretty good living. So when the adult child is financially independent from the parent, now the other tactic that Judge Jackson has used is emotional blackmail. So basically he tried convincing Michael Jackson that if he distances himself from his family, he's alone in this world, and that it's only his family is really going to be on his side. So all this to say is that it's all at the core. A person who's abusive, they want to be the one in control of the situation. And if that doesn't work, and that's what happened with Michael Jackson, at some point he wanted to do his own music, he wanted to have his own voice separate from his siblings. Not that he really cared about them, but he wanted to be his own person. And the next layer or the next tactic they're going to be using is telling the person that there's something wrong with you, you are weird, you're strange. I think the biopic Michael was well made because it really explored this dynamic of a dysfunctional family and how it's important that the person to grow and to become the best version of themselves, they need that distance and the courage to actually walk away and to see how Michael Jackson, started as this young child and all that he went through to become who he is, this legend, and the fact that he was able to claim his independence from his family, but more specifically his father. I trust that this movie review was interesting and maybe you learned something. If you did, please click on the like button. Also remember to click on the notification bell to be notified of other videos I'm going to be making. Subscribe to my channel and we will talk soon.